Stepping into Retirement, an unusual podcast about finding purpose, meaning, and balance after a busy working life, with David Ailing-Smith and Peter Taylor. Exploring the emotional, psychological, and practical realities of modern retirement through a series of reflective conversations undertaken whilst walking scenic routes across the UK.
Oh, hello, Daz.
Hello, Peter. Well, this is pleasant, isn't it?
It is. We are in Oxford.
And it's flat.
It's very, very flat, and I'm very, very pleased about that.
So this is your choice. So that was the main criteria, was it today? A flat walk?
Yeah. Very, very different from our last walk up a mountain. So we appreciate that, and we're going to have to pause now because someone's coming along. So we've started at Isis Lock. We're now at Frenchay Road Bridge, and I'm fascinated. So it's right next to, there's a canal on the right-hand side. There's some fantastic-looking murals over there. There's a kingfisher I can see. I'm going to take a picture of that in a minute. And there's a clock. There's a clock on the bridge.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Oxford is a fascinating city, isn't it?
Here we go. You've got some facts, haven't you? You've got some fun facts.
The oldest English-speaking university, of course. Well, you knew that, didn't you? But I think Frenchay is where Bannister broke the 4-minute mile back in the day. I may have that wrong, but he certainly broke it in Oxford, and I think it was here. But
I don't think that was the clock they used over there, to be honest.
No, it's an interesting.
Maybe it's a nod to that in some way, or actually it is to help the bargemen know what time it is. I don't know.
Very good. Lovely city though, isn't it? I mean, a load of famous writers lived here: Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Philip Pullman, and of course the home of the Oxford Dictionary.
It feels to me that wherever we go, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis seem to come into the equation.
Follow us.
Yeah.
I think they were locals, really. But so what are we talking about today? It feels like it's part walk, part interview today, Peter. Is that right?
Part walk, part interview. I'm not sure. Well, no, I wanted to base it. I mean, it's based on me, but it's a wider topic, clearly. It's all about elderescence and that retirement thing. And I felt we have to be a little bit personal here because it's about us as well. Although we've had some great, and I know we're going to have some more great people to interview and share their experience. But I thought I'd like to, not just make it about me, but talk a little bit about my experience, which I'm going through at the moment. So today is possibly a momentous day for me.
Okay.
Because yesterday I finished work. So I'm 68. I'm 69 in September. I'm obviously very young looking. Thank you for that. I was going to go straight in just in case you didn't say that, but I am. Yeah,
very good.
Yeah. Certainly young in mind as well. Perhaps too young sometimes, as people say.
And you've just stopped work.
I don't know. I don't know if I've just stopped.
Well, you stopped work yesterday.
Yesterday, I have been made redundant. So I'm very much like our friend Sally, who came on our first interview. I think it's different in some ways because it doesn't feel as forced. It's been such a long time coming, and I knew about it.
It's unplanned, but you've had a lot of notice.
It's unplanned,
so I think that's the category.
I reflected this morning when I woke up that it's possible that yesterday was the last day I would ever be employed by someone. Not necessarily work, because as we know, I'll talk about it. I do other things as well, but to be actually employed by a company to do a job, it is possible that yesterday was it, which is quite sobering.
How did you feel about that?
I didn't feel anything yesterday, to be honest, because it was just it was all done and dusted. All the equipment had already gone back, and we'd wrapped up. We'd done all the legal documents and everything, and I live in hope that they will pay me some money at the end of the month to make me feel better. But it was this morning, really, and I think because I was going through my mind what we're going to talk about, because in my usual style, I hadn't prepared anything until this morning. Of
course.
And then suddenly remembered it was my job to do something. I think what it is I don't see it as the kind of grief that Sally was talking about, because I was mentally prepared for it, perhaps in a better way.
Yes.
Because I foresaw this coming over a year ago.
Yes.
I think the other thing is it's finding now for me the options of what to do. I mean,
yes,
and so many things, because I have the alter ego, the lazy project manager, and the work I do there. I have as an author, as a speaker. There's also there is a possibility to retire. It would be a very different quality of living financially if I were to retire. So, but I have gone from that kind of, that full-on career. And thank you for not making a joke about, my approach to full-on careers. But
No, well, I think the tone of today is slightly different, and it does feel like a big day, and maybe I can ask you some open questions to help you.
You can do. I know, because it's, to me, it's like it's filling the gap. I think is my big thing at the moment. So go on, ask me some questions.
Well, so in terms of when you woke up this morning and thought that could be the last day of my paid-for working life, was there anything that came to mind that you look forward to? Was there anything that came to your mind in terms of that allows for me to do more of this in the future? I appreciate it's very fresh and new, but
I don't think there is. No, there isn't. I think there's just too many questions at the moment. Too much of it is open-ended. I think I'm going to talk a bit more about the loss of structure when we next break for a conversation. But it's more about what next? What is going to happen next? And what are the choices? And you can't just sit still. As we were talking earlier on, my wife and I go into.
You can't sit still. I think that's a truism. But we have mentioned before that everyone's different, and actually, for a lot of people, sitting still as a way of recovering from a very busy life feels like a very lovely thing to do. But I know that's not an option for you because that's not who you are.
Thank you for taking it down that route. What I meant by not sitting still is that decisions have to be made. By not sitting still, what I mean is the fact that I could just sit here and go, I'll take the money, I'll think about retiring, and I'll start burning through that money that I'm going to get. But actually, we have to make some other decisions. And we were talking earlier before we started recording that my wife and I are looking to move, to downsize, to clear any residual debt, etc., as a part of a kind of a contingency or protection against the future state. But it's requiring. I mean, it's just, losing your job and moving. I mean, two of the most stressful things
Absolutely.
You can do. I'm not getting divorced, which is novel.
That's the other one. That's the other stressful thing.
It brings some levity into it.
But it also allows for a reinvention. I mean, that's what you're talking about, a reinvention of your life. The next stage of your life, you now have the opportunity to go and do anything that you want to go and do. And if that involves money, then that would push you down a path to go and earn money again. And if it doesn't involve money, it takes you down a path of having time to do it. So I think this takes... It's only there was a podcast talking about this. This would be so useful, wouldn't it?
What would you call that podcast, Daz?
I think it'd be sitting down into retirement. Something like that.
Benching it with Daz, which we're sitting on a nice wooden bench.
That sounds a dreadful euphemism.
It does actually. Looking into people's houses at the moment, actually, they overlook the canal, but therefore they expect lack of privacy.
It is. I mean, we'll come back to your reinventing your life, Peter. But we just walked through Old Jericho, which, if anyone knows, it's a beautiful old bit of Oxford where very sleepy canal with lovely houses leading down to the garden. And it has a sort of a shabby grandeur to it, I think, which is very attractive. But there we go.
We're talking about houses still, not me. Yeah, shabby grandeur. I'm going to throw in a fact.
Go on then.
Well, I continue my journey of investigating the profile of English people, or British people, rather, I should say. Sorry, British people. And there are 3.6 million people over 65 who have basically retired earlier than they anticipated due to circumstances, shall we say. That strange noise going past was a jogger, just in case anybody's wondering. It's due to circumstances. And that circumstances are redundancy, illness, or having to move into a caring type role. 21% of that group is as a result of redundancy. So again, it's a very big community and they're not following our podcast as yet.
Well, there's a lot going on in the IT world at the moment, isn't there? I was reading this week about the number of layoffs in Silicon Valley, and as the growth of AI is causing organizations to basically make some pretty big calls, actually, I would say, before AI has proven itself in that sort of
they are. I talk about the assumptive wave at the moment. There's pressure from CEOs around the world to make the savings that they see their competitors making, but it's yet proven. It's opportunistic cutting, I think, of the workforce. I attended an event in the week, which was it was all about, getting project managers back to work who'd been out of work for some time, and it was quite. I mean, it was, the guy who ran it, very uplifting, high energy, specialises in that kind of recruitment world and has done for years. But it was also very, very sad and a little bit depressing. The number of people who attended that call have been, out of work for, 3 months or more. Because of where the market is.
It's a tough environment, I think, for many people. But I want to be positive for you today, because I think, the world is your lobster, Peter. I think. And we should.
Why would you do a seafood analogy for someone who doesn't like seafood?
Yeah, fair point. But I think.
Can we I can do a langoustine. That's as far as I go. The world is my langoustine.
And I think we should try and think of some ways in which you can approach this change in your circumstance in a positive way, because I think it is positive, and I appreciate there's lots of negative things. I haven't asked you the question about. What are you worried about? Because I'm sure you'll come on to that. But I think there's a lot to be thankful for, Peter, today, for both of us.
Okay.
And I'd like to dwell on that later.
We will. Okay, let's continue the walk. Right, okay, well, a little break again. Where are we, Bridge?
It's fascinating, isn't it? These little communities by the canal. If you read the Pullman books, like the Amber Spyglass.
Well, I watched the TV series.
Blade. It's a different world, and we've seen people living on their boats down here, hanging up their washing next to the towpath with the kiddies stuff.
Solar panels.
Wood
piles, everything.
It's a different world, and we were talking earlier, Peter, about you have all this opportunity in front of you. Would you ever think about living on a canal boat, for example? I mean, it's something you could do now with Juliet. You could go off and travel the country.
Well, all right. The plus is that. Juliet could get a dog. The negatives are, I think I would go insane living on a canal boat. I believe at that level of lack of room. I think, and I know they, as you said, they stretch out, but I can't see that.
Camper van, or is that the same?
Camper van, interestingly, is something that we have sort of jokingly talked about. Just selling up, investing the money, buying a camper van. And going to see Great Britain over a period of time.
You could do that now.
We could do that. I'm a note. When I thought about me right now, is I'm time rich. I'm focus poor. I think at the moment.
Focus poor. Well, I think given the number of times you've kicked off new projects, and you've got your new stakeholders around you, and you basically you interrogate them, don't they, about what their expectations are of the project. You could do that now. I could be your stakeholder, and I could give you ideas, and all your other friends, your other friend, could give you ideas on things you could do.
Yeah, I've been too busy in my career not to make friends. So that's okay.
I don't think that's the only problem, Peter.
No, okay, fair enough then. But it is about it is the theme is loss of structure.
Yep.
And for a Virgo project manager. That's very, very challenging.
Can I make a radical suggestion?
You can make one.
Well, your life has been defined by that structure, and your expertise came out of the project management world, and you've moved on, and you've built PMOs, you've built teams. It's been around that a planning approach, and you're sitting here now without a plan, and that must be very unsettling. But maybe that's what is the next stage of your life. You can open yourself up to possibilities, things you would never plan for, but they might happen. You just need to hold open that field of possibilities and find a way to be happy doing that. I appreciate this is very, very hard, but then anything could happen. Like you could get in a camper van with Juliet and travel around the world for a couple of years, or there's lots of possibilities. There are
lots of possibilities. Absolutely. I think it's I came up with it. I know you came up with elderescence, etc. I felt I needed something, so I defined something which I refer to as the R point.
The R point. Okay.
The R point, with the R stands obviously for retirement, etc. I'm realising I had no plan for the other side of the R point because I never thought that I would retire in that sense. I just felt it would go. And the other work I do, I saw, the writing, speaking, something which is continue on, and it could continue on. Absolutely.
You that's why we don't like the word retirement. You are in elderescence, and it's down to you to choose what you do with that time. I think that's a much healthier way to look at it.
I feel I'm more in bewilderescence. at this point in time. But that's a subset of elderescence.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, isn't it, that we're now talking about you going through this in a way that we've talked about with other people, but it feels like this is really striking home now. Now it's actually happened.
It's real, absolutely. But I don't know. If you go back to the camper van idea, which is something Juliet and I did talk about, as I said, not in a serious way, but a kind of as an opportunistic way, perhaps. It's really what happens after that. That's it's like now's the time perhaps to be really planning. And I said I had no plan for the R point or beyond the R point, but maybe I'm being driven to be a little bit more sensible and grown up about it, and I should have a plan. And yes, we could do that, and maybe we could do that, but let's say for 3 years, trolling around Great Britain, coming back to see family every now and then. We're getting full authenticity here. Look, if we get quiet for a minute.
Let the train go.
It's not a train.
Oh, no.
That's a canal boat, Daz.
Lovely. Sorry,
There's a big difference.
But it went under a bridge. It sounded very loud.
Look at it. Can you hear that? That's beautiful.
It's a long one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you sure you can do that? And that looks very relaxing.
It is. I've been on canal boat. We talked about it while we were walking. We've both been.
Morning.
We've both been on canal boats in the past, and it is very, very relaxing, and it's a very different pace of life. Everything is just slow and steady.
Do you remember when we went to a conference at Lord's Cricket Ground once, and the various people presenting had their back to the ground, that wonderful old ground in that modern media centre, and we were all absolutely transfixed by the man cutting the grass. Do you remember that?
I do. I was one of the people who was speaking, so I recognised the look on the audience faces. But it was they were just so slow and steady, and it was just they were cutting a millimetre off the grass. I think they were rolling it. Now that's a train.
Okay.
There's big. Can you tell the difference now?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
But
it wasn't boring, was it? It was
fast.
It was like
soporific. It was
slow
wonderful.
Television or whatever they call it.
Absolutely, as a screensaver, it would be immense. I think.
But going back to your, what happens afterwards. I mean, that's the way your brain's worked all your working life to plan what happens next. What do we do next? It's your project management expertise.
Mm-hmm.
You have contingency plans. You have risk registers. But maybe this next part of your life doesn't have to be like that, and it could be liberating not to plan the next stage of your life and let it happen in a way that is unexpected, and it could be joyful. And I appreciate things can go wrong, but things can always go wrong, and so it's perhaps a way of looking at your life in the future in a different way. Very hard though, I do understand.
Yes,
and
it
scary.
is. Yes, yeah. I mean, you worry about security. You worry about, I'm sprightly, as I say, in this generation. Sprightly. Very
Victorian word.
Somewhere I can't remember. I was somewhere. I think I was having a coffee, and there was a couple of girls in there, and I was talking about someone who died recently. I can't remember who it was now, and I think they were something like about 66, and they used the phrase, it was a good life.
Yes.
It's a good age, or something like that. It's not a good age. It's really not a good age. 85 is, and 90 is a great age. Look at David Attenborough, 100.
But sprightly is a word I think applies to older gentlemen who are good for their age, whereas I don't put you in that category at all.
No, okay, all right.
You're very young at heart.
Not sprightly. Yeah, not sprightly. Okay, we go with that. It feels like it's a turning point. It feels like it's it should be about opportunities. It should always be about opportunities. I agree, but there are also a lot of anchors in your life as well, aren't there?
There are.
There's family. I got family in a couple of major locations in the UK. Apparently she can't give up a hairdresser who lives in Bracknell. So that's a big anchor. Apparently, hairdressing has to factor in anywhere we go.
It's an interesting metaphor, isn't it? Because an anchor gives you support in choppy seas. It also holds you back.
It does. Yes.
If the wind's blowing you in a different direction, anchors can hold you back.
We can tick that box now. You've come up with one.
Metaphor of the day.
Bucket of water.
We've had that one as well, haven't we?
Yes.
Off sound, but some of the things we've said to other people in this situation is to canvass opinions from people who you trust or you love, who you have respect for, and just talk it through.
Well, I'm talking to you.
Okay. And your other friend's not available?
No.
But you
don't trust them.
You don't speak to him anymore. Yeah. It's very interesting listening to your tone on this podcast, because it's quite different from the other podcasts, because it's real now, isn't it?
It is real, yeah, and it's a reality, and a lot of it is the timing. I know, yesterday was a big day, end of something, so in many ways it's a good time to have this podcast. In other ways, I'm probably more subdued and not pessimistic. I think the best description of me is I am a sort of realistic optimist, or fatalistic optimist probably is more likely, actually. Fatalistic optimist, that in my life something's always turned up. Sounds a bit who was that? Was that Micawber? Mr. Micawber? Someone turns up? I can't remember. It's only a Dickensian character. Our listener can tell us probably.
I bet he was sprightly.
He was definitely sprightly. So fatalistic in the sense that something will happen, something will turn up, but it will be a good thing, because that's the opportunistic aspect to my character. And I guess I'm just waiting for that now, and I shouldn't really expect it to happen the day after.
No, I think that's true. That's
overly optimistic.
Your impatience is legendary. But if you consider the things that you have, you have your health,
yes,
you have your energy,
yep,
you have your intelligence, you've got your wisdom, you've got a loving family, you've got at least one friend, and you've got time.
Yes.
And with your creativity, I put that in a pot and mix it. I think all sorts of exciting things would come from it. But I think what you're reflecting on is that destabilising moment that so many of the people on our podcast have talked about.
It's empathy. Which I've been challenged that I don't have a lot of empathy for other people, but yes, it is empathy for that kind of situation. And I haven't been allowed to have the plan and control that I would expect to continue, and that's that is, as you say, it's destabilising.
It is destabilising, but it allows for things that weren't allowed for when you had a robust plan. So I think it's very positive, Peter.
Okay, cool. Onwards. Not upwards. It's flat. Oh, here we are. We're on the River Thames now, aren't we?
We are. I love that canal walk. I thought it was so interesting. And it just felt like a different world. I think Oxford is a bit of a different world, really, isn't it? Have I said that already? It's the oldest English-speaking university.
You said that already, yeah. Yeah, you said that one, yeah. You run out of facts.
Do you remember? No, I have one more. Do you remember different parts of the country used to have their own time? So before the...
I don't remember that, Dad. I remember the fact that was the case, but I don't remember it being the case.
So before the railways came, in fact, what caused the countries to synchronise was the railways.
We go down Bradshaw route. We go down Bradshaw?
Yeah. So, but in Oxford, one of the colleges, I'm not sure which one, Christchurch, let's say, they ring a bell at 9 o'clock in the evening at 9:05, because that's what the Oxford time was, and it's sort of a little last ditch of independence from Greenwich Mean Time.
We have all these quaint customs, and this is another podcast perhaps, because I was reminded that this week is the opening Parliament.
Yeah.
And an MP has to be held captive by the Crown for the opening, whilst the King or Queen is actually opening Parliament.
And Black Rod has the door slammed in his face.
Yes, all these crazy traditions from old times.
Yes.
There we go.
But that's what makes it special, isn't it?
It
somehow?
is, yes. Anyway, I want to talk about. So I try to be a little bit more positive on this state of mind that I'm currently in, and it's a realization. I'm not starting from scratch. That's the first thing I thought. Well, this is not like blank. It is a blank canvas, but it's not a blank canvas.
Well, I gave you a list of all your attributes earlier, Peter.
You did, thank you, and well done for reading those out. So thank you, I appreciate that. But I'm reminded of, you remember our days back in Cognos, and then you upped and left, and then not long after that, there was a swathe of redundancies in the company, and you weren't responsible for that. I'm not suggesting that, but I had the experience of that. I was made redundant along with 6% of the workforce.
Yes.
It was at the IBM acquisition then, and so firstly, it's not my first time. It's not my first rodeo here.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that I met a great counsellor who was very nice. And he basically said, "Look, we've got all these facilities. You can look." He said, "But I'm not going to get you a job. Your network, your people, whatever. You're going to get a job." He said, "But I want you to answer one question, and then we can go to the pub." And I liked him for that as well, because we had most of our meetings down the pub after that. And he said, "The question I'm going to ask you is, what are you going to do next time?" And I looked at him shell-shocked, because I've been made redundant for the first time in my life. I'm still dealing with this. It's still raw, and you're telling me about next time. But the reality was that was the birth of my alter ego, the lazy project manager. It was the birth of writing. It was the birth because I started speaking. I was told to get a book, and I wrote the Lazy Project Manager, which somehow was a success. That's led me to the 500 plus presentations, 28 countries around the world type thing. And so there's the realization that in my experience and my arsenal, if you like, is that ability to, it's not like I've lost a job and I have absolutely nothing else. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Well, and I think you've just made the point I was trying to make previously, was that you didn't plan for that to happen, did you? That was an encounter with someone that gave you a phrase that triggered something in your brain that made you go off and do something which you'd never thought of before. And I think I'm arguing for that can happen again. You don't know what it is yet because it hasn't happened yet.
No.
So, the future's full of potential. And at the moment, I'm sure it's all very raw and you're thinking of all the practical challenges associated with not having a regular income. But, and obviously one has to sort of deal with those practicalities. But I'm trying to encourage you to be open-minded about what this allows for, like you were when that chap said what's going to happen next time round. And actually, if you've got those notes out now, you could see what you decided to do, and you could then do that.
Well, I got another job, and then I started Lazy Project Manager. But it's maybe then I think what I put down here is it's not the big question of do I retire or not. That is the hard one.
Well, again, I'd encourage you to think of being in elderescence and how you're going to spend that time, rather than thinking of retirement as a binary event. What is
the point of consolidation of kind of work freedom and income that suits this new life? Is the kind of thing. So take those guiding, I suppose. They are kind of pillars. It's a bit like, if I go back to project management, the triple constraint, the iron triangle.
Yes.
You move one, the other two have to move.
Yes.
So there's a reality of, like, I could say, I could. You suggested the camper van, so I could say, we could do that. But I can't go and buy an American RV that costs, £500,000, for example.
In the project management sort of triangle world, that the time element of that triangle, was fixed in the sense that, you could spend more money and you could bring a project in, but the time element of your life now is not a constraint. And so, for example, you could do something that you've never been able to do before, which is to say, I'm going to take a year and I'm going to deliberately not worry about this for a year. I'm going to embrace a project like this podcast, or going around the country with Juliet, and just let it sit with you to see where it leads.
Yeah.
Because you have time, Peter.
I do have time. I know, and I will come to that. But one of the other encouraging things, I was looking up some kind of quotes around this, and it was the one I liked was, I've reached a stage where experience becomes more valuable than energy. So, the value of the experience, and that my experience does have value, and it's not about stopping, it's about redesigning. I think that's where I would leave it, really. I think in the sense that that's what I feel is what I've got to go through. And there, I said I'm not going through grieving, but I think I am going through a change, a metamorphosis, if you like.
Yes.
That's going to take some time, and that doesn't have to be solved today or tomorrow.
It doesn't, and I think
just sometime.
And I think we talked in previous podcasts about this allows for a reinvention if that's what you want to do, and you can take time doing it. And maybe these podcasts, as we continue to talk about it and hear other people's stories, may inspire you to go off down a new path. We heard this morning, didn't we, that actually we've been encouraged to go off and take the podcast onto YouTube, TikTok.
Oh, I knew you'd get that in. So, for the listeners, it's my wife who's been nagging me to not stop on LinkedIn, but we should be over on
I'd
TikTok.
encourage you to take a different attitude. She wasn't nagging you; she was making a suggestion you didn't agree with.
Well, there we go. There we differ, etc. So no, it's been interesting. It's been a lot. Well, we've got half an hour now to leg it at speed across to the pub. We're going to the Perch. Yeah. You're in charge of navigation now because we're deviating from
the river to the left. I think is the way.
Keep the river to the left. If we don't get wet, then we're going to get something nice and wet.
I've enjoyed it, Peter. It's been a good one. Thank you for being open. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate your honesty and your sort of authenticity. I think that's what these podcasts are about. And well done you. And hopefully, you can be positive about the next few years in front of you.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Daz.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Walking into Retirement, an unusual podcast about finding purpose, meaning and balance after a busy working life with David Ailing-Smith and Peter Taylor. Find out more at www.walkingintoretirement.com, and why not share your own retirement stories with the hosts?